George Burruss. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Criminology. Generally, my research is focused on criminal justice organizations and how they respond to crime. And as cybercrime has become more prominent, it's been evident that the policing response and law enforcement response needs to catch up to the cyber criminals. So I've used my research in policing then to sort of transition over looking at cybercrime. In addition, I've also looked at the motivations behind why people commit cybercrime. Digital piracy, computer hacking, internet crimes against children, cyberbullying. There's a lot of behaviors that have an analog component in the real world. So, for instance, there's a lot of offline scams like advanced fee loan scams or the famous Nigerian Prince letter. Well, all those were done in newspapers and in letters before the internet. And now that the internet's taken off, of course, they've made the transition online. So cybercrime really encompasses a lot of traditional behaviors that have become more pronounced because of network computers. But there's also some behaviors that are simply kind of new, like, for instance, cyberbullying. With social media and the Internet of Things, one aspect of cybercrime is that people become more and more open to victimization. So the more we put stuff online, the more we talk online, the more our households are connected to the internet, the more likely those things can be used against us, which is not to say we shouldn't do those things, but it just means that we have to have better cybersecurity. And so if you can come up with a password that's hard to guess, whether that's a random string of numbers and letters or a phrase that only you could guess, that's probably the most prominent way to do it. But also simply be skeptical if you receive any kind of email message or if you're surfing the internet, careful on what you click on, because that's how malware gets installed on your computer. So it used to be that phishing scams were very easy to detect because they were kind of obvious. They've become more and more sophisticated. It becomes harder and harder to determine what's a real message and what's a fake message with malware attached to it. So you have to develop a pretty healthy dose of skepticism when dealing with anything on the internet.